Okay, I'm gonna just start. It's 10 minutes after. Um, and then we can just do it all for the recording.
Do you have questions already?
Yes, I usually have questions. So, uh, usually I start with like, just tell me a little bit about your like a high level summary of like your career path so far and the work that you're doing right now.
Okay, so right now I'm a technical designer on the multiplayer team in Halo. Um, Before that, I was working as a software engineer in Xbox. I did a couple of things on the dashboard. I work in Cortana. And besides my work right now in Halo, I'm starting my own nonprofit studio called B Collective. And in here we focus on interactive streaming experiences, and the 100% of the money that we earn from the games goes directly to charity. So let's say if we make a panda game, all the profits of the game goes to a panda conservation organization, for example. And besides that, I'm the current lead for Latinos in Gaming. That is an organization backed by Xbox to help other Latinos to break into the game industry and succeed.
So how does that org work? Like, there's the I thought Xbox internally had a Latinos in gaming org. I thought that was strictly internal. Is that what you're
Yeah,
referring to?
yeah. So that's how the organization was born, right? Like it was more about a social group on, oh, let's meet all the Latinos that are working on Xbox. Let's do internal events like picnics or meetups or gaming nights, things like that. But then this effort on Xbox was created that is called Gaming for Everyone, and and the idea behind this is Microsoft is supporting uh, this idea that everyone has to have a place where they can have fun in the game industry, right? And in order for accomplishing uh, that position, well, we need diversity, and we need different perspectives on the content that we're creating too. So they start creating these different groups supporting different underrepresented devs on the industry. So we have under the Gaming for Everyone belt, we have blacks at Xbox, we have Latinos in gaming, and we have uh, an accessibility group, and we have women in gaming, and we have the LGBTQIA group too. So we all try to help our own communities with their own struggles and challenges, and by providing mentorships or creating social events where they can meet all other developers and they can see that they are not alone, right? And they can ask for help from other members of the community.
So a few years ago, I remember someone describing Microsoft as imagine Silicon Valley, but if everything was owned by one company. And that's what Microsoft is like inside of it. And I I like hearing you talk about all these groups. I'm like, man, it really does sound like that. Like there are even like social groups inside of it and like different like association groups. Um, but also there's a distinction between the groups that you mentioned and the IGDA communities. So like at GDC, we met at the Latin X in Games round table and brunch, which was I believe organized by uh, the group that eventually applied for IGDA association. So like they are, I guess their full name now is the IGDA Latinx in Games SIG. Uh, but that like I just want to like be clear that's one group, and the group that you just finished describing is a separate group. But there's like overlap in membership and stuff, right?
Yeah, like Christina, that is the one in charge of the IGDA Latinx chapter. I think she could give you more information about that. We're already like working in what way we can partner for some event being San Francisco that she is there, or in here in Seattle or somewhere else. Uh, but yeah, like we try to collaborate as much as we can between the two organizations.
So before we got on the call, I remember asking you about just like how much can you talk about your current project? And specifically, I was more curious about not necessarily the content of what you're working on because I imagine that's secret, but I just want to learn more about the technical side, like what tools you work with. Are there any like common, like even just public stuff that you can refer to, like, oh, hey, there's a GDC talk on so and so technology that we use, like uh, any technical details that you can talk about?
Yeah, I can give you a couple of examples of software, and I don't think it's a secret. I don't think it's a mystery to the industry. Like we use Maya for modeling, right? And we
Uh,
use Houdini, for example, for some of the VFX. Uh, I think that in the art side of things, it's easier to um, to see what you could, like, let's say if you would want to get a job here, right? Like those are the type of things that you could learn and that we actually use here. Uh, from a more development side of things, what we use IDEs like Visual Studio, or I usually use like Visual Studio Code. That is the like the smaller version of it, like the simplified version of it.
oh, I haven't
And
used code. I'm surprised.
yeah, I mean, it's just comfortable to use.
It's
I
more
use the
lightweight.
console, and yeah, it's more lightweight for doing small changes and things like that. And yeah, well, we have a lot of proprietary tools, and I think that that's the case in a lot of the AAA studios,
Yeah.
even within even within the tools that are available for everyone. Let's say Maya, I'm pretty sure that everyone has some kind of special tool that or plugin that is just proprietary for the studio, or some in some cases like uh, they have their own version of the Unreal Engine, for example, right? Uh, so yeah, like most of
Also,
the
they
of
they
the
they bought that tier of Unreal that gives them access to the engine source code, and they modified it heavily. So now they use that.
yeah, and you can see that example with the Cry engine and several of them, right? Like every studio grabs the vanilla thing and then they use it uh, as they see that it fits for whatever game they're making. So yeah, I would divide the tools that we use into the ones that are public and the ones that are uh, and yeah, like I don't know, like it's just code, right? We have our proprietary engine too.
And you work
So
in C++.
yeah, we work in C++, we work some in C Sharp, we work some in Lua too. No,
Oh, really?
depending, like when you're making a game this big, and you have people from different uh, backgrounds, you need to have different levels of, how can I call it, like engagement with the tools. I mean, if you are a graphics engineer, of course you're not going to be working in Lua, right? You're going to be working in the lower on the technology stack is working on. I think that from any engine, right? Like if you're modifying the engine itself, that's probably in C++, but maybe you will have some
By the way, you're. It sounds like you might be having some network lag. I don't know if you can get to a spot with better internet or if that's just whatever. It's not too bad, um, but it's fine. uh, okay, so the next question I had was about um, you mentioned the tools that you work on your day to day. I'm wondering like what your process is like day to day. Like what kind of feature work do you typically do? Are they like yeah, I know you work on a multiplayer team. Is it like the team decides to experiment with a certain new mode or new idea for a change, and then they just put you on it to work on it. How closely do you work with uh, I guess, the decision making if you are working on experimenting stuff like prototype work? Um, and what other like ways do you get like work items?
Can you hear me? Oh, I don't know
Yes.
what happened. Okay,
You still sound a little weird, and I don't know if it's network or something else.
let me check.
Are you on Wi-Fi or data?
I'm in data, but I can connect to the Wi-Fi.
You sound much smoother now, but it might just continue behaving the same. Like you've been going in and out as far as smoothness goes. I don't hear you.
I'm trying to connect to the Wi-Fi
Okay.
to see if it's a better connection.
Testing, testing. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, now on Wi-Fi. Okay.
Oh, you sound
So
great.
did I answer your question?
Yeah. And my next question was, do you? What was my next? Oh, my next question was kind of just. You mentioned a little bit about the tools, and now I'm more curious about your process. So, like, on the day to day, do you like get work items from PMs and stuff or producers, and then you like, what kind of work items are they? Are they like, do you do a lot of prototyping? Do you do a lot of like long term feature work, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both, depending on the complexity on the feature. Uh, there's stuff that you need to play test early, so you probably are going to develop some kind of prototype for that, and so you can play with it and iterate. But if it's something more simple, like, I don't know, let's say you're making a door that opens, like if it opens, like it opens, right? Like it's ready for the final version. So it really depends on the thing. Yeah, the team is composed by producers and designers, and at least the multiplayer team is composed by designers and programmers and producers that carry the project forward, and a couple of leads that guide the different areas. Within the design team, we have level designers and we have system designers. I'm the technical designer, which means that uh, besides doing designing stuff itself, I help with more technical things like scripting, or if some level designer needs an interaction on the map, I can help him set it up, that things like that.
That's neat. Um, when you uh, so you studied computer science in school, right?
Yes.
And you got hired by this team after you graduated?
So I graduated and I started working on Xbox
Oh, right,
for
yeah.
about a
I
year,
remember now.
and then I got hired by this team.
What kind of work did you do on the Xbox team? Like what features?
I used to work in Cortana, so I did a lot of the voice commands. Uh, I also did a couple of things on the dashboard, like if you leave your console idle, you are going to start seeing some cards that tells you interesting information, like what your friends are doing or if some friend is streaming. I did that feature too.
So, how long were you there on the Xbox team, and how long have you been on the current team?
I I was uh, around a year on Xbox, and I've been here almost a year too.
What do you think helped you, like, as far as like the interview process went, to get the first Xbox job?
So I think that, like, number one, I was an intern too, right? Like I was an intern on Xbox. I did
Uh huh.
3 internships there. Um, so it's very interesting. But my first interview, I was probably on third semester, fourth semester, something like that. So the technical side of things wasn't that bad at the moment. It was more about the passion, about what I wanted to do. You know what my career wanted, what I wanted from my career. I think that really helped me. You know, like being having a very clear vision of what I wanted to achieve and where I wanted to be. I think they like that about me.
Yeah, that's like literally any. I think most job postings they literally say they want someone who's passionate, and you see that so often that it starts to mean nothing. But I think what you just said is like a good example of like what that kind of
Yeah,
means.
and I can tell you, like, here in the studio, like, I work with the most passionate people that I've ever known. You know, like everybody loves the game. Everybody loves the game, and they know everything about the game, and they're amazing at playing the game. Uh, and I can see how you have to use that passion as the fuel for creating something like a game or like a film or anything like that. The passion needs to be there, because it's going to get tricky down the road. So, and the passion is the one that is going to make you keep going no matter what happens on
Yeah,
the way there.
I also think that there are multiple types of passion. Like even if you're not passionate about the product or the particular market that you're working in, I've definitely met people who are more passionate about the craft. Like you can just tell
Oh
that
yeah,
they really love being good at their job and getting good at their job. And even
yeah,
like they,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And so
Yeah,
it's both way. I think like for a lot of people that I've met and people that I've seen, they definitely look for both, like passionate about the job and the product. But I think the passion about the job is this like the real meat of it, especially in games, because there are so many people who apply to jobs, and recruiters are really used to seeing people who are passionate about the games, but are not that ramped up on the actual job to be passionate about it yet. Um, yeah, so that's something
yeah,
that I.
and you have examples of people like they've never played the game before, but they're amazing. I don't know, like network engineers or graphics engineers, and it comes back to the thing that I was mentioning before, that you have different levels on the tech stack where you can work. So if you're working on the engine on this very specific rendering technique that we're using, uh, it doesn't really matter what game you are making, right? Like
Yeah,
the tech is the same for everywhere. So if you want to do that, yeah, it's not just about loving the game that you're making, but also loving the craft, like you mentioned.
so I wanted to learn more about the nonprofit work you've been doing. So you, what was it called? Be Collective. Was that the name of it? Do you hear me? I don't hear you. I still don't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, I hear you.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with the
I
Discord app.
don't know. Maybe at 1 o'clock sharp, it like shut you off.
Yeah,
So I was asking about. I wanted to learn more about Be Collective and that group.
yes.
So, did you say that they build games specifically for like Twitch and stuff?
Yeah, so we're working on designing games that are exclusively made for streaming. Uh, I think there's a big opportunity in terms of game design. At least that's what I'm very passionate about. That you can create unique experiences, right? Like the best example that I can think of is like Twitch plays Pokemon, right? For me that was like mind blowing on how the community can just organize in this chaotic way to accomplish something. And so yeah, we create that type of games.
And it's
Uh,
charity based. So how do you make your money? How do you raise funds?
so we don't. I think that the all the members of the team do this as their side project, if you want to call it, or if
Yeah, like the team members don't get paid, but do you also like raise funds for other charities?
oh yeah, so that's the our business model is a donate as you want model. So you go to our catalog of games and you select the game that you like, and you say, oh, I think this game is $5 for me, and the full $5 goes to the charity, right? And depending, the charities are aligned with the theme of the game. So if we're making an art game, it goes to some art organization that helps. Uh, for example, right now our first game that we're going to be publishing is called Canvas, and the money collected from that game is going to go to this organization in Seattle that helps some poor communities to create art programs and things like that. So because our game is art related, uh, the charity is also art related, and
Cool.
that's our idea with every single game.
And so, like someone who buy the game would be like a streamer or even just a regular person who's gonna start a stream with that game and integrate it into the stream.
Yeah, you start the game on your computer and start streaming. Yeah, you play the game. Depending on the game, we have games that are play. For example, it's the viewers against the streamer, or there are some other streamer only. I mean viewers only games, and they are. At least I'm trying to have a different different types of experiences for streamers and for the viewers too, right? Like maybe you can have a game that you put in on screen while you're waiting between your Overwatch matches, for example,
Oh, like a
or
more
a
passive
game,
game.
yeah, like a passive game that you leave on your channel while you're not streaming, or
That's interesting.
something that you are not, maybe you're not actually engaging as a player, but you are guiding the viewers to accomplish something, right? Like in the case of Canvas, the game is basically that. It's an empty canvas where you guide the viewers to draw something. right? Or you challenge the viewers to draw something.
That sounds really fun, actually.
So yeah, and I think one of our core principles in the group is uh, that we believe in the democratization of games, both in the sense of creation and consuming the games themselves. So so all of these games, I'm trying to make them as accessible as I can for people that even don't play games, right? Like, or for streams that maybe they are not game streams at all, right? Like maybe you have a cooking stream and you want to gamify the experience of your view or of your viewers to keep them more engaged with your channel and things like that. Like I think that I want to extend the concept of what a game is and show people that it's not just about like having a joystick in your hand and with buttons and that's the only way you can play a video game.
That's great. Also, hi Ian, you're the first person to show up. uh, if you want to ask questions, feel free to jump in through voice or text, as usual. Um, we actually have. I've been really enjoying this conversation. I'm glad I'm recording it, and I'm kind of sad that more people aren't online at this hour. But that's fine. It happens. Let's see what Ian's typing. So, I wanted to ask you. Lately, I've been hearing a lot about the Microsoft reorg. You know how they kind of do like a reorg every like year or so,
Yeah,
around this time of year.
yeah.
Does that affect 343 at all, or is 343 more like its own like separate entity that's kind of owned by Microsoft?
No, I mean, we are all part of the gaming organization now. Now that
Okay,
Phil Spencer
so you really are part of the org chart.
became yeah became the CVP of gaming. Yeah, we're all part. I don't think at least in our case we didn't have a direct impact on the way we're doing things, right? Like we're the studio and we're
Yeah,
working on our game and that's still valid after the the reorg. So
of course, it
yeah,
always
we're
is.
not that impacted.
I was just more curious about how like it's more of a question of how far removed are the studios from Microsoft, and I guess you kind of answered it like um, they are actually part of the like org like that chart and the division stuff, but they do operate as if they are like their own little companies, their own little studios, but
I
you're
mean,
still
it's like
part.
you mentioned, right? Like Microsoft is pretty big, so I don't think that's an exclusive thing of 343. I think that every team works
Yeah,
autonomously and we try to work with other teams, right? Like we work very close with the platform or I don't know, like with publishing, right? Like we have these connections between orgs. Or for example, like when I used to be on Xbox, I had a big relationship with with Bing and with Cortana, with the Cortana core team, right? Uh, to have all those endpoints on the console too. So yeah, like it's very collaborative environment. It's more about like if you are in one of those positions where you have to interact with other teams, it's more obvious.
can I ask what your team is like? Like, what kind of people are on your team? Like, are many of them very senior people? Like, or a lot, is there a mix of like juniors and like people with a lot of experience versus people with not that much experience? Um,
I think most people here are very experienced. Uh, One of the very first things that I heard from one of the employees that I talked with them um, when I was trying to get a job here was that yeah, like this is like the end goal, right? Like, and I can understand that like you're
yeah,
working in Halo, right? So yeah, there's a lot of senior people that are amazing amazingly talented people and they have a lot of experience. But at the same time, like they are like trying to invest in new talent, like me, right? Like I'm not, I am not as experienced as them, but I bring something to the table. I bring the energy, I bring the passion, I bring my own perspective, right? And also coming from Mexico City, my Halo experience is very different, right? Like it's interesting how that background impacts the way you create something, and I can use that. You know, like I don't have the seniority, but I have my own tools too.
What's the team culture like? Is like is first of all, like, do you work? Do you crunch a lot? Do people work long hours? Is it? Do you feel like it's easy to be a lesser experienced team member? Like, is there a culture of like growing and supporting people, or do you feel like you're a little playing a little catch up too often?
I mean, I think that in any studio, there's this speed that the team has, right? Like, and but I have found a lot of support here, like both from my manager and from my peers. You know, like every like we are a team and we want to accomplish and have the best game possible. And yeah, I don't I feel like we are in a like I love my team. I think that they uh, my manager does a good job or allowing us to be very creative about what we do, and at the same time giving us a clear vision on what it has to be achieved from a more like broad perspective. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, like I love it here.
That's great. Ian asked, "How do you keep up your excitement and passion when working?" It kind of sounds like, as you were saying earlier, that it kind of just comes easy to you because you just love the team and the product so much.
Yeah, and yeah, that happens all the time, right? Like uh, even when you're like making projects when you were in school, right? Like at some point you're just like done with the thing, right? And yeah, like I have bad days. I have bad days when I'm trying to figure out something and I just can't make it work. But then I have good days where something works and see people playing my thing and I see them happy and excited, you know. And for me is that when I see people, and I wouldn't, and this is more of a general answer, like when I see people playing my games and feeling happy or feeling different types of emotions, right? Because if my game is a scary game, I want them to be scared, not happy. uh, but yeah, like creating this reaction on people and seeing them, it's that's what that's where I get my energy from, and it's from the fans, it's from the people that really love the game. And being a fan myself, like I don't want to fail them, right? Like I don't want them to be disappointed, and I want them to be excited and to have the most amazing Halo game that they have. And that really pushes you to be the best that you can, and pushes you through the hard times.
That's good. Um, I think I'm out of questions. Well, what do you think of America? So you moved here for work.
Yep.
Do you travel home frequently?
Yeah, I go home like every 4 or 5 months, I would say. Yeah, I miss my food. and
Yeah,
and I miss my language too, right? Like I think that that was the biggest challenge for me. Um, I well, I didn't used to speak in English back in Mexico, right? And I learned I learned English because I wanted to make games. So I learned the language very late in my life, like around high school.
Uh-huh.
So so it's not the same, right? Like that's why you have to teach like little kids languages because they can just absorb it very easily. And but for me it was a very big challenge, and still is more, even more being in a creative position when you have to like push your ideas and explain why you think this is the best thing for this feature or this mechanic on the game. It's a big challenge, but I'm getting used to it. I hope the weather wasn't as bad as it is here in Seattle, but it's all right.
At least it's not like New York cold. It gets
Yeah,
cold, but
right.
not that cold.
Yeah, and it's beautiful here too, right?
Have
Like
you gone to?
coming from
Yeah,
coming from Mexico City, where the air quality is not the best. Uh,
yeah,
here on the mountains is amazing.
yeah. And people here care a lot about the air quality and the environment.
Yeah,
Have you gotten a chance to travel around the country at all, like the United States,
yeah. Like I usually travel for work
like
when I'm
GDC?
organizing. Yeah, GDC, or I go to LA for E3, or I'm going to be participating in this Game Depths of Color Expo in New York.
Oh, I heard of that.
Uh, yeah, yeah. It's an important expo that they are starting to develop there, and we're supporting the team over there to reach out to East Coast uh, devs. And yeah, like I travel a little bit here and there. Travel to Vancouver a lot, being that close.
Do you have any advice that you haven't mentioned yet for people who aspire to work at 343?
I think that my biggest advice, and even more that this is focused for students, is that you have to start as early as you can making games, because it's like a snowball effect. Like if you make a, I don't know, like a Space Invaders clone when you're in first semester, uh, you might think that it's not that amazing game or whatever, but it's a step towards the direction that you want to be, and that's going to have a bigger impact than if you start doing that same game at the end of your college. Uh, at the end of yeah, at your last semester of college, for example. So yeah, I would say start early and just do it. Like I sometimes we want to someone to give us permission, right? Like the way you become a game developer or a game designer or a producer or whatever you want is by doing it, right? Like there's no other way. Um, and eventually that effort will pay off. It's just doing it for, like, because it's doing it because you love it too, right? Like if your dreams are about money or about fame or about any of those things, it's it's going to be very hard. But if you love what you do, no matter what happens, um, everything is going to be there as a consequence of you just doing something that you really love.
Ian is typing. Yeah, just to elaborate on what you were saying, I definitely agree. Um, that's definitely the advice that everyone just keeps spreading over and over again, which is like just get started, don't wait, don't feel like you have to wait. And it really is a snowball effect. Like the experience difference between like having like 1 year of experience and 2 years of experience is like enormous. Like especially in programming. And
Yeah.
programming, like the hours that you have put in, makes a huge difference. And a lot of people feel bad, especially in introductory classes, where they feel like, oh man, I'm in this intro class, but there are people in this class who have made all these great things already before the class, like people who get started programming in high school, for example. Um,
And like don't get
yeah,
discouraged by not being the best.
yeah,
It's not about being the best. It's about doing what you love. Like, I don't think I was the best student of my class when I was in college. I don't think I was the best programmer. I don't think I didn't have the best grades either, you know. But I was the one that loved what I do the most. And now all those people that were like uh, that that have better grades than me, or that they were making these amazing things, they would like to have my place, right? So it's more about doing what you love, and don't get discouraged because it's not in the quality that you expect, and don't compare with other people, like that was one of the things that was harder for me to learn being in college, like, or even like after, right? Like, I would say, like, yeah, I'm 20, 21, 20 years old. Like, at this point, Steve Jobs already was, super successful. What am I doing, right? And the thing is that my journey is very different from Steve Jobs' journey, and it's very different from your journey. And like, everyone is on their own track, and it's very difficult to compare, and it's very difficult to really like compete against people, because everyone comes from different backgrounds and have different expectations, and there's also like some kind of randomness and some kind of luck that is involved in whatever happens.
yeah,
So so it's better to just love what you do and hope for the best.
yeah. I think understanding that how big of a difference hours can make, like just the hours that you've put in experience, and also understanding how much luck plays into it. Uh, because like once you understand it, I think it's much easier to not get discouraged because then you can be like,
And
okay, I like that was just luck, or like like if you don't get a particular job offer, for example, you can just think, yeah, there's a big amount of luck in it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not qualified for a particular job. So
and it's also about that, like, very cheesy concept of, oh, luck is just like where preparation meets opportunity or something like
yeah,
that, right?
so there
Like,
are things you
yeah,
can
like,
do to maximize your luck and to play around
yeah,
those strengths.
there are a lot of external things that you don't have a control, but at least you have to be prepared to make the jump when the window opens.
That's a great analogy. So we're almost done. Uh, Jessica's online now. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in before I let you go. Before I let everyone go. Well, I asked earlier. Do you? How often does your team crunch? By the
um, I don't know. That's the answer.
way.
I
So
don't
they
know.
haven't crunched while you were there.
Like, yeah, yeah.
That's good.
I mean, yeah, we're trying to not crunch. I don't think nobody wants to crunch, right?
Yeah, and it's
So, so,
counterproductive.
so yeah. So the answer is I don't know. I think everybody works very hard. I think that there's also this component to to the crunch that most people don't see it, And for example, I really felt that, right? Like I'm staying longer at work now that I work here than when I was working on Xbox. But it's not because I have my boss behind me pressuring me to do stuff, or I'm behind schedule or anything like that. It's just that I prefer to be at work. Like I love what I'm doing, and between that and going home and be watching Netflix or something, like I want to be making Halo. Like it's fun and it's engaging and it's challenging. So I ended up like working more, and I feel like a lot of the team feels like that. Like like what are you doing here? And they're like, oh yeah, well I'm working because I'm having fun making this level or something like that, right?
Yeah, you just get sucked in. I just get
Yeah.
asked if you're in the Latinos IGDA sig, and the answer is yes, I think.
I mean, I'm not a member of the, how could you call it, the
The
leadership team,
yeah,
but I work with I work with them. I work with Christina. I work with Juan. I know all of those guys. Yeah, they just started to, right? So yeah, we're trying to.
I think you're in the sig as far as you like know them and you're kind of part of the surrounding community.
Yeah, so I think that I'm in a good position to help them too, right? Like having the Xbox support. So yeah, I'm trying to help them to grow the community and in any way I can.
Yeah, and for the record, he's also the you're the lead of the Xbox Latinos in Games group, which is a
Yes.
community that's not necessarily internal only. Is that true?
Yeah,
But
it's not internal
it
anymore.
started out as an internal group, so a lot of people know it by that name.
Yeah, this in GDC we organize the Latinos in Gaming event uh,
That was a great
on
event,
the
by the way.
Mina Gallery this year. Thank you. And last year we organized a game jam in Mexico City, and we're helping with the Game Devs of Color Expo in New York. So we're starting doing more work outside. I also want to start, at least this year, focusing also a lot in the Hispanic community in the US. Like I think there's a lot of work to be done there too. I want to reach out to local high schools where there's a lot of like Hispanic people there too,
Yeah,
and and try to help them pursue like a STEM career or a career in video games, and show them that it's possible, right? Like there's the I know that they will have some of the same barriers that I had. Like I didn't have the money. I I
yeah.
wasn't very smart.
A lot of times,
No.
it's like they don't even imagine it. Like they don't think it's an option or like a real job. And
Yeah.
a lot of people I've spoken to in the industry always talk about that first time they realize like, what, I can make money making games, or like the first time it was put on their radar. And so there is a lot of like advocacy slash outreach work to do to get more people to
Yeah.
imagine it.
I really like to do that, and I really like to show up and be very vulnerable by saying like I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a genius. I'm not a anything special. I just wanted to make games, and now I make games. And if you want to make games, you can make games too. It's just trying. It's going to be hard. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but if you want it, it's there for the taking.
Okay, so we're kind of out of time, but Jessica asked, she wants to learn more about what it's like to be a technical designer, like that what that job title means. And I asked a few questions about it earlier. Do you think that we kind of covered it? Maybe I can just point to the recording.
I can answer it very quickly.
Sure.
Uh, the way you can think of a technical designer is a game designer that also codes. You know, like I'm the contact between the engineering team and the design team, right? Like sometimes I'm working on solving design issues in the technical side, or I'm solving technical issues on the design side. So let's say we're in a brainstorming session, and we're trying to figure out a new game mode, right? And somebody says, "Oh yeah, we should just like have this crazy thing happening," and I'm like, "No, it's not possible because I talk with engineers, and this is like this is what is actually viable because of these reasons." And I'm kind of like the glue between the two worlds, right? And yeah, you can think of it as that, like I'm the connection between the engineers and the designers. And sometimes I have tasks that are like an engineer, sometimes I have tasks that are more like a designer. It's a little bit of a freeform position. uh, but yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. So I'm gonna let you get back to work now. Thanks so much for doing this with us. Also, let us know if you ever want to do another one in the future. Maybe like in a year or something.
Yeah, definitely, anytime. And if someone uh, wants to talk or someone has any additional questions, just contact me. I guess I can leave my email in the chat, and just send me an email and we can talk. And I don't know, whatever you need, I'm here for you guys.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks. See you later.
Yeah, thank you.